This video is brought to you by Blessed Be God Boutique, maker of Catholic fashionable apparel, handmade accessories, and more.
In my We Were Warned series, I've touched on St. Hildegard of Bingen's prophecies of the end of the world before, and of the AntiChrist and such, but truth be told, she has said so much that you could almost dedicate a whole channel to the things she has said about the subject. And so we're going to talk more today about her visions of the Antichrist and what the state of the world at that time. And this is not going to be the last time I do this because, like I said, she has said quite a lot on this. And being a canonized saint, and those who did the canonizing knew of her visions, so before they canonized her, so you could take these to be, at least worthy of consideration. Okay, but she's one of the greatest saints in the history of the church. If you were going to wanted to read a Lives of the Saint, like a biography on a saint from a trustworthy source, go find one from a conservative and traditionalist publishing house on St. Hildegard of Bingen. You will find she is incredible. But here we're going to go over her, just read what she had to say about the Antichrist, and there's a lot of animal imagery used here. There's a purpose to it, as you'll see. So, St. Hildegard of Bingen on the Antichrist in the times that he arrives in. The last days and the fall of Antichrist. Then I looked to the north, and behold, 5 beasts stood there. One was like a dog, fiery but not burning. Another was like a yellow lion. Another was like a pale horse. Another like a black pig. And the last like a gray wolf. And they were facing the west. And in the west, before those beasts, a hill with 5 peaks appeared, and from the mouth of each beast 1 rope stretched to one of the peaks of the hill. All the ropes were black except the one that came from the mouth of the wolf, which was partly black and partly white. And lo, in the east I saw again that youth whom I had first seen at the corner of the wall of the building, where the shining and stone parts came together, clad in a purple tunic. I now saw him on the same corner, but now I could see him from the waist down. And from the waist down to the place that denotes the male, he glowed like the dawn. And there a harp was lying with its strings across his body. And from there to the width of 2 fingers above his heel he was in shadow. But from there down to the bottom of his feet he was whiter than milk. And I saw again the figure of a woman, whom I had previously seen in front of the altar, that stands before the eyes of God. She stood in the same place. But now I saw her from the waist down. And from her waist to the place that denotes the female, she had various scaly blemishes. In that latter place was a black and monstrous head. It had fiery eyes and ears like a donkey, and nostrils and mouth like a lion's. It opened with its jowls, and terribly clashed its horrible iron-colored teeth. And from this head down to her knees the figure was white and red, as if bruised by many beatings. And from her knees to her tendons, where they joined her heels, which appeared white, she was covered with blood. And behold, the monstrous head moved from its place with such a great shock that the figure of the woman was shaken through all her limbs, and a great mass of excrement adhered to the head, and it raised itself up upon a mountain, and tried to ascend the height of heaven. And behold, there suddenly came a thunderbolt, which struck the head with such great force that it fell from the mountain, and yielded up its spirit in death. And a reeking cloud enveloped the whole mountain, which wrapped the head in such filth that the people who stood by were thrown into the greatest fear. And that cloud remained among the mountain for a while. The people who stood there, perceiving this, were shaken with great fear, and said to one another, Alas, alas, what is this? What do you think this was? Alas, wretches that we are, who will help us, and who will deliver us? For we know not how we were deceived. O Almighty God, have mercy on us. Let us return. Let us return. Let us hasten to the covenant of Christ's gospel. For we have been utterly deceived. And lo, the feet of the figure of the woman glowed white, shining with a splendor greater than the sun's. And I heard the voice from heaven saying to me, All things that are on earth hasten to their end, and the world droops toward its end, oppressed by the weakening of its forces and its many tribulations and calamities. But the bride of my Son, very troubled for her children, both by the forerunners of the son of perdition and by the destroyer himself, will never be crushed, no matter how much they attack her. But at the end of time she will rise up stronger than ever, and become more beautiful and more glorious. And so she will move sweetly and delightfully to the embraces of her beloved. And this is mystically signified by the vision you are seeing. For you look to the north, and behold, 5 beasts stand there. These are the 5 ferocious epochs of temporal rule, brought about by the desires of the flesh from which the taint of sin is never absent, and they savagely rage against each other. The fiery dog. One is like a dog, fiery but not burning, for that arrow will produce people with a biting temperament, who seem fiery in their own estimation, but do not burn with the justice of God. The yellow lion. Another is like a lion, for this arrow will endure martial people, who instigate many wars, but do not think of the righteousness of God in them, for those kingdoms will begin to weaken and tire, as the yellow color shows. The pale horse. Another is like a pale horse, for those times will produce people who drown themselves in sin, and in their licentiousness and swift-moving pleasures neglect all virtuous activities. And then these kingdoms will lose their ruddy strength and grow pale with the fear of ruin, and their hearts will be broken. The black pig. Another is like a black pig, for this epoch will have leaders who blacken themselves with misery and wallow in the mud of impurity. They will infringe the divine law by sins of the flesh and other evils, and will plot to diverge from the holiness of God's command. And the last is like a gray wolf, for those times will have people who plunder each other, robbing the powerful and the fortunate, and in these conflicts they will show themselves to be neither black nor white, but gray in their cunning, and they will divide and conquer the rulers of those realms. And then the time will come when many will be ensnared, and the error of errors will rise from hell to heaven. And then the children of light will be pressed in the winepress of martyrdom, and they will not deny the Son of God, but reject the son of perdition, who tries to do his will with the devil's arts. And these beasts are facing the west, for these fleeting times will vanish with the setting sun, for people rise and set like the sun, and some are born, and some die. And in the west before those beasts a hill with 5 peaks appears, for in these peaks is symbolized the power of carnal desire. And from the mouth of each beast 1 rope stretches to one of the peaks of the hill. For each of those powers will extend throughout this period in question. All the ropes are black except the one that comes from the mouth of the wolf, which is partly black and partly white. For the length of the ropes indicates how far people are willing to go in their stubborn pleasures. But through the one that symbolizes greed is partly black and puts forth many evils. Yet some will come from that direction who are white with justice. And these latter will hasten to resist the son of perdition by ardent wanders, as my servant Job indicates about the righteous doer of justice. When he says, "The innocent shall be raised up against the hypocrite, and the just shall hold to his path, and to clean hands he shall add strength." See Job chapter 17, verses 8 to 9. Which is to say, one who is innocent of bloody deeds, sins of the flesh and the taking of life, and the like will be aroused like a burning coal against one who deceives in his works. How? This latter speaks of honey, but deals in poison, calls a man friend, but stifles him like an enemy. He speaks sweet words, but his malice within him, and talks blandly to his friend, and then slays him from ambush. But one who has a rod with which to drive away vile brutes from himself walks in the light of the shining sun on the righteous path of his heart. He is raised up in the sight of God as a bright spark and a clear light and a flaming torch. And so, bearing in himself the strongest and purest works, he puts them on like a strong breastplate and a sharp sword, drives away vice and wins virtue. And the next time we visit this subject, we will talk about the church in those days from St. Hildegard of Bingen. But I'm curious what you thought about this. Do you find this to be illuminating? You'll find much similarities there with the Apocalypse or Revelation, and you'll see some similarities there with some of the prophecies from the book of Daniel. But I'm curious what you think about this. Do you find this interesting at the very least? Encouraging? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments, please. And there's the sort of a political angle here, because he's pointed to the West, and it's described in the ways that we talk about that in geopolitical terms. So let me know what you think about that in the comments, please. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. So to sharing this on social media, that helps too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.